Hi, I'm Jim Gibson. Thank you for coming to my channel today. Very much appreciate it. And today we're going to talk about good debt and bad debt. There is a difference between the two. And if you understand the difference and you end up with good debt rather than bad debt, you're going to be into having some financial freedoms and you're going to live like a millionaire. Now, let me tell you my story. I think many years ago, I was living in Philadelphia at the time. I'm from Philly. But I was living in Philadelphia and I had 3 kids at the time. And I was working 2 jobs, but I was running out of money I was running out of food every Thursday night before payday and before I, could get the next paycheck. And it was really pretty nasty time. I remember one time coming home on a Thursday night and opening up the refrigerator door and seeing mayonnaise in there. Not mayonnaise, it was mustard and ketchup. And I remember asking my wife, I said, "Dear, do we need to have the refrigerator on if we only have mustard and ketchup there? I don't think they need to be refrigerated." So that's how tight we were financially. The reason why we were tight financially, well, we had a lot of credit cards that were maxed out and we're making minimum payments on them. At two cars, making payments on 2 cars. I was working 2 jobs. So I was working a day job and a night job. So I was trading my time for money the best I could and working as hard as I possibly could to feed my family. And I'm always thankful for the church down the street that would always give us the leftovers from the Wednesday potluck. So at least on Thursdays before a paycheck, I would end up with stuff from the night before, and that held us over, and that was very kind of them to do that. But at first I looked at that time and how I worked. I did certain things. I figured out certain things. And I thought, something, this is the worst time of my life. I can't even take care of my kids, and I'm working like a dog here. And I can't even take care of my little kids. Now I look back on it, and I think it was the best of times. And the reason why it was the best of times is I learned so much in that 2-year period about finances, about life, about how to handle my finances, about how to handle my family. That has put me in the position I'm in today because of those 2 years. I learned a lot about finances. And it's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find it here. I always think of that verse in Proverbs. And if you're not familiar with Proverbs in the Bible, it is chock full of good information about finance, about how to run a business, things like that, about people, about being fair to people, about all these different areas of life, but it deals a lot with finance. And in this case, Proverbs 16:16 says, "How much better to get wisdom than gold, and to get insight than silver." Now, if I read that verse back then, those 2 years I was struggling, I wouldn't have believed that. I would have believed it's better to have gold. You can keep the wisdom. It's better to have gold. But now looking back on it, and the things that I learned back then, those 2 years of struggle has helped me to get to where I'm at now, where I have tremendous financial freedom, and I am a multimillionaire. But it was because of the principles I learned back then in Philly with 3 kids and struggling in the finances. Now, why? Why did I have such struggles? Well, because I lived in debt. I had nothing but debt. And how did I get out of it? I read a book. I think I read a book. It was by Ron Blue on how to handle your finances. Now, what I did is I had a piece of paper, and I wrote little lines down the piece of paper. I had 3 columns. I had income, because sometimes I would do extra work for people, handyman type work, and I would be able to write down the income. And then I wrote expenses, and I wrote down every single expense that I had. And I made sure I tracked every single penny that came into my account, everything that left my account. So I knew exactly where I was. So you can't, if you're looking at a map and you want to get somewhere on that map, you always have to know where you are first before you can figure out how to get to where you want to go. So I needed to know exactly where I was. Why was I making what I considered decent amounts of money and yet running out of food on a Thursday night before payday? Something was wrong. I was running out of money. I didn't have any money when right before payday. And so, I needed to know where I was, and that's how I did it. And it was all done by hand. It didn't cost me anything. Just a pen and a piece of paper with lines down it. So writing on the left, on the very left, where the money came from, and then writing it in the column, the plus column, and then how I spent money, write it in the minus column, and always keeping a total off to the right. And so I started that, and I learned that from Ron Blue, that you need to know where you're at before you can get to where you want to go. And so if you're struggling right now in financial situation, this is a great opportunity for you to learn. I know it's not fun. I've been there. It's definitely not fun. And nor did I expect my relatives to bail me out. It was not their responsibility. It was my responsibility. I got myself into this mess, and I needed to figure out a way to get out. So I kept track of every single penny I had, and then I decided to be certain principles. And the first principle was I was going to take my smallest debt, the smallest credit card debt I had, and I would do everything possible I could to pay that debt down. So I wasn't going to make minimum payments anymore. So if minimum payments was $20 or $25, I would need to cut something out in my life to find $10 extra to start paying down that debt. Then once I paid that debt off, what I would do is I would take that $20 minimum payment plus whatever else I was paying on that, and then I would move it to the next lowest credit card debt. And then once I paid that credit card, then I moved it to the next. Then I moved it to the next. Then I started on car payments. I got rid of one car. It seemed like I only ever had one car anyway, because they were so old and poorly designed that when I'd get both of them up and working, the one would die. And when I would work on the one that died, by the time I got that up and working, the other one would die. So I only ever had one, but I was paying insurance, I was paying car payments and everything else. So I cut it back to one car, and I did not buy another car. I just kept that one running. So I cut back all my expenses I possibly could in every area. And you know something? There's no vacation. When you got debt like this, you don't go on vacation. You got to get rid of your bad debt. It's holding you back. All your money is going towards banks. All your money is going towards stupid purchases that you've had in the past. You know, I remember asking my wife, I said, why is this credit card so high, this one in particular and everything else? She said, well, do you remember we bought a really fancy microwave with that? And I thought, and this is when microwaves were just starting to get popular, you know, back in the 80s. And I said, well, dear, that was like 5 or 6 years ago. We're still paying it off? And she said, yeah, we're still paying this off. Minimum payments. You will pay them for the rest of your life. Credit cards, if you use them wisely, fantastic. If you use them poorly, you end up like I did, in bad debt all the way around, owing everybody something and not being able to pay anything. So I turned it around, and I also said, you know, look, I believe there's a God in heaven, and I got to honor him first with my income. So I made sure that even though I didn't have a lot of money, I honored God first with my income. Before I paid any of my bills, I put money aside and gave it away. And I think that's a key also. I think I see a lot of people who are wealthy, and they give a lot of it away. And I didn't think of it to make me more wealthy. I just thought it was my responsibility to do that, to help somebody else, not because of who I am, but because I realize that everything I receive in life is a gift from God. You know, I got my health, I got my mind. Some people may disagree with that, but I have my mind. Everything I have in life is a gift. I didn't earn this life. I didn't earn the heart that works and the lungs that work and two hands that are able to do just about anything I need them to do. So I realize I have to honor God first in life with my income, and he's the one that provides the money. Well, eventually, as you could see, I got out of debt, and then at the same time, I was able to save up enough money for a down payment on a house. I bought a house, and pretty soon, I not only bought that house, but I was able to pay it off. So I had all my debt paid off. I had one solid car, and I was not going around hungry forever, or thinking I was going to go around hungry. Never missed a meal, by the way. But it was a couple times I thought we were going to miss a meal. We were going to have ketchup mustard dinner, but it didn't happen. And so to make a long story short, now I read about Dave Ramsey, who I have great respect for, and I think he has fantastic ideas, by the way. And he talks a lot of this, and this is things I've learned before I read Dave's book, but he repeats a lot of these things, and he calls them baby steps. And I see how they work, and I know they work. They worked in my life, and they can work in yours too if you're in debt. And this is how you get out of your debt. You get out of debt step by step. And it also, you know what else it teaches you? It teaches you not to waste money on stupid things. You don't go out and you buy things you don't need. Now, eventually you got to have breaks. You know, I understand that, but you got to get out of debt first. That's how I see it. So watch your spending, so that income sheet along with expense sheet really helped me keep in line. I think about some other people who have not learned financial management, and most people don't know financial management. They don't teach you that in school, and they definitely don't teach you that in your MBA, because I got a master's in business degree. At the same time, they don't teach you how to start businesses, and they don't teach you how to do financial management, in my opinion. Corporate management, yes, but not personal financial management. But I see these lottery winners, and I see them making millions of dollars and everything else, and you need to read about them. You need to read about failure as much as you read about success, and I hope you're reading about both, to be honest with you. You need to study this. This is an important part of your life. But I notice most of them are in debt within a couple years. They go through millions and millions of dollars within a short time period, and they have nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. And sometimes what they have to show for it is a bankruptcy, because they're millions of dollars in debt. And you see this a lot You see this a lot in professional sports. People can no longer play. They made millions of dollars each year. They have nothing to show for it. And then, of course, I have some background, some friends. There was a friend of mine who had a serious injury, industrial injury, as an employee, and he got pretty sizable payment. I would say in excess of $1 million, from what I understand. Well, he decided immediately to go out and start a business, along with his brother, who had no business experience, neither of them. So they went out and they started a business immediately. And when they did that, it failed within a year, and the money was all gone. And he still had his injury. He still was disabled. But he didn't have money anymore. So it was sad because he didn't learn money management first. And then, of course, I know someone else whose house kept on raising in value, and what they would do is every time that happened, they would refinance the house, take the extra money out, pay off all their credit cards, and start fresh. And that meant for them fresh to build up the credit card debt again, over and over again. So again, they don't have financial insights on these things, and it's hard to convince people about how important this is, that you get your personal finances working first before you do anything else. So, I recommend Dave Ramsey's, but there's one thing about Dave Ramsey I would go beyond. How's that? I don't disagree with him. I just would go beyond. And that is, once you get the baby steps, once you understand the principles, and once you are out of debt, then it's time to start looking at good debt. And there is such a thing as good debt. I have some significant good debt, and I'm glad I have some, and I'm hoping to get a little bit more of that significant good debt. So what is good debt? Good debt pays you. So in other words, I own a couple of homes, I own more than a couple homes, but I own a couple homes, and some of those homes are mortgaged. A percentage of them are mortgaged. And so I have them rented out, and so the renters pay my debt. So the difference between bad debt and good debt is bad debt you have to pay, especially if you're trading time for money. That's really bad debt. That's horrible debt. But if you're trading, if you have someone who is paying your debt, a renter who is paying your debt, and I like real estate. I've tried the stock market. It doesn't work for me. I don't want to spend every waking morning, every time. And I see on my cell phone, the Dow's up, the Dow's down, the Dow's up. It's this, it's that. I don't want to live life like that. Houses go up and down. Yeah, they go up and down, but I'm not going to sell any. So I'm not really concerned if it gains $100,000 this last year or things like that. And I've had houses that have done that. What I'm concerned about is, do I have a good solid renter who's paying me? And do I have an emergency fund when that renter doesn't pay me, or when that renter decides to take off at 2 o'clock in the morning and skip town? Can I still have money to do the repairs to get that back on the market? So I keep emergency funds for that. So my good debt pays me. I don't have bad debt anymore. I don't have car payments. I don't have credit card payments. I make sure, one of the principles that I learned in Philly was you pay your credit card off every month and make sure it's 100% paid off. If it's not, if there comes a month you can't pay that credit card off, that's the time that credit card gets cut in half. But I use credit cards, but you have to use it wisely. So I have bought homes, and I would say, every home that I ever had has increased in value. The rent has increased. And people are paying my debt. So they pay enough in rent to cover my insurance and taxes, and at the same time they pay enough in rent also to pay the mortgage, if I have a mortgage on that house. Now, I always believe that you should own your own house 100%, because there will be a day that the world falls apart, and it'd be really nice to own your own house. So let's see. Before, I talk about buying houses and real estate as a company, but you really got to know the area. So once you get out of your bad debt, and even as you're in your bad debt, you can study real estate, and you really have to know it, because you can lose money in real estate, big time lose money in real estate. Buy some goofy homes. I bought one goofy home. I got rid of it as fast as I could, and I learned a lesson. Thank you for the lesson. Painful? A little bit, but I got out of it. And excuse me. So you got to do your studies. A lot of good books out there and everything else. Do your research too. Because, I get these books that talk about real estate and everything is wonderful and everything's great, and they talk about that nation. As a nation, real estate went up 50% or 5% or whatever it is. That's okay. You don't live in a whole nation. So all real estate is local. Have an emergency fund. But the nice thing about real estate is there's a tax advantage to it. So it's called passive income. So you're not taxed like you are with a regular job. You're actually taxed at a lot lower rate for whatever you keep. You're only taxed on what you don't spend, which is opposite. You're taxed on what you do spend when you're trading time for money, regular job, things like that. and I am taxed on what I don't spend. So if I got to fix up the house, I fix up the house. I got a car, I got a cell phone, all that is covered by the business, and that's all pre-taxed money. So it's a great deal. The government wants investors to invest in real estate, and they reward you handsomely for it. So, for me that works. Stock market works for other people. It doesn't work for me. I don't like it. It takes too long to do it. Now, another thing too is starting a business. I started a business, a couple of businesses. I'm always starting businesses, it seems like, with the idea that I'm always going to sell them when I'm done. But I ran an IT business for 28 years, and it was very, very successful, and I used that income. Now remember, that to me, that even though it's called active income, to me it was passive, because I had other people run the company for me most of the time. But I took that money and I invested it in real estate. So, maybe it's you need to do a company than real estate. The real estate's just one answer. But maybe you do. Now, there's some really good books out there that I'd recommend, and of course, I'd always recommend Dave Ramsey's book. His book, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. I'm going to put it down in the description down there. But also, if you're interested in, and it's a really good book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and it talks about money and how to invest and how not to do it, things like that. And it's really entertaining. I enjoy it. So you can look at that, Richest Man in Babylon. Also, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is excellent, excellent book. And there's some others, and I'll put them down at the bottom with a link of where you can find them. The bottom line is, what was, as I was living it, the worst 2 years of my life, difficult time, a very difficult time, turned out to be the most valuable 2 years of my life. I would not be here today. I consider myself successful. I'm not a billionaire, okay? But I consider myself successful because of those 2 tough years. Those 2 years where it was extremely difficult to live and to take care of my family. But they turned into 2 extremely valuable years. Proverbs 16:16, how much better to get wisdom than gold. Man, the wisdom I learned those 2 years really helped me with the gold I got today. And it also says, how much better is it to get wisdom than gold, to get insight than silver. And that's absolutely right. I learned a lot. The things I learned those 2 years, they don't teach in school. The things I learned those 2 years, I didn't learn from my parents. They were good parents, didn't learn from them. I learned it by going through the pain and the effort and the difficulties. And now I have sympathies for other people who go through the same difficulties. But don't think that they are bad times. They might be tough times, but they're not bad times. Proverbs 16:16. Thank you for watching today. Very much appreciated. Always appreciate it when you watch this. Please give me a thumbs up and also subscribe. And I hope you have a wonderful day.